Hey everyone, so this one's about stress testing your system for stability, and you might do that for a couple of reasons. If you change cooling system components, like I did to change a couple of fans, I had to change thermal paste, reapply thermal paste, because the jackasses who rebuilt my bathroom got dust everywhere, all inside my machines, and caused a bunch of failures. So after I replaced those things, I wanted to stress test them, but you may also want to do stress testing just to ensure stability. You may want to do it to make sure that your power supply is up to whatever task you have. So I'm going to show you this in Windows and in Linux, what I do anyways, for my main rig that I use for everything. Everything from gaming to school and work to this. But I'm not going to actually run the test on this because I'm recording in OBS. And I'll also show you what I do on my server, where I'm mainly concerned about hard drives and CPU. So on Windows, I use IDA64. Now I think IDA64 has a free trial. I got this one somewhere, this full version. IDA64 gives a whole bunch of information about your computer, really detailed. So for instance, you can see I've got two CPUs that are each x5660s, meaning I've got 24 threads on 12 cores on two CPUs. So each CPU is a hex core, 12 thread, and I have 48 gigs of memory. Let me see here. If I click motherboard, does that show it? Maybe, maybe not. 48 gigs of memory, you can see right there. The memory speed, it's all SK Hynix chips running at 1333, 667 megahertz dual data rate. This is DDR3 SDRAM, it's 72-bit, which means it's ECC. Anyways, you get the idea. There's a ton of info here. But what I use it for is to run these system stability tests. Now when I do it, I'll stress CPU, FPU, cache, since these are all within the CPU itself essentially. System memory, which is RAM. I do not stress local disks, because I don't want to put any extra wear and tear on them, because I don't want data to have a problem with data. I also don't want to prematurely wear them out, which I don't know if that's a concern, but I just don't do it. Also, local disks don't add a whole ton of heat or wattage to your system typically, so not a huge concern if you don't stress them. You can still get a good idea of system stability. And I stress the GPU because that adds a ton of heat and it takes a ton of wattage, especially if you've got a big discrete GPU like I do. Prior to testing it, what I'll do is open up the performance monitor built into Windows. You can do that by hitting Control-Shift-Escape, then click on the Performance tab. Now what you'll actually see is overall utilization, an average. You'll want to change this to logical processor, and it shows all the threads. Now you can see right now my CPU is running at 12% utilization, running around 3 gigahertz. This one has a base clock of 2.8, rather these two, and they boost up to 3.2. In my Linux server, they have a base clock of 3.3 gigahertz, 3.3? I don't know, and it boosts up to 3.4. You'll see that though, because I actually will stress test that one for you. In this case though, when you stress these things, what you'll see is CPU utilization will go up to 95 to 100%. These graphs will all fill up. If you click memory, you'll see the memory will slowly fill up and get right around 48 gigs, somewhere between 45 and 48. And you'll see the GPU utilization will go way high as well. It'll be creating the maximum amount of heat, using the most amount of power it can, and that's a good way to stress your power components, so the power supply and the VRM and so on, and your cooling components, since you're putting the biggest load on the cooling devices as well. So at any rate, I'll have these things turned on, hit start, watch this. What you'll see is the speed will boost up. It would go to like 3.1, 3.05 on mine. Not quite to 3.2, because remember, that's not the all-core boost. That's for, I think if there are 4 cores running on my 2 CPUs or something like that. Since it's stressing all the cores, it goes above 3 gigahertz, but not much above. And this has these handy charts. You can change what the charts are by clicking on these features here, these different tabs here. I show CPU usage and then some temperatures. So in this case, I've got motherboard temp, CPU average, a couple of the cores, and in this case, the Marvel RAID, which that doesn't really get stressed. However, it's good to know if you're, in this case, it's a Marvel RAID chip in there. Good to know if that device is getting heated up, even if you're not stressing it, because of the other components in the system too, which could cause premature component failure. At any rate, this is what I do in Windows. Run IDA64 stability test, watch it for a while, wait till the temperatures stabilize and see if it throttled. Temperatures the allowable temperature depends on the CPU and depends on if it's a laptop or a desktop CPU. These are Xeons. They can run up to ADC without a problem, without throttling, and they can do that all day. You can run them 24/7 at 79.9 degrees Celsius, and they're fine. When they get above 80, they start to throttle. When they get to 100, I think that's when they will shut off. They'll hit a thermal limit, something like that. At any rate, that's it for Windows. For Linux, a little more in-depth, a little different, I should say. So this is my server. I use three programs, sorry. I use a program called Stress. There's also one called Stress NG. Features are a little bit different, but they're similar. They're both command line programs. And then to monitor, I just use one called LM Sensors and one called HDD Temp. Now with HDD Temp, to monitor it, you've got to manually tell it all the hard drives that you want to monitor. If you're a Linux person, you're probably aware of this. And then with sensors, I believe it will search for what sensors you have, and it will tell you the status for all of those. Use sudo, pop in your password real quick, and here we are. So here you can see it tells us my hard disks, all less than 30 degrees Celsius, which is ideal. Hard drives you don't want above 35, certainly don't want them above 40. And prior to making the changes that I made recently, these were running 38 degrees Celsius regularly, like with no load. You can see my CPU is 25 to 27 degrees Celsius. This Linux box has a single CPU. The temperature in here is probably 18 degrees Celsius. Now I'm not going to stress the disks again, and in this case I'm not going to stress the memory or the video card. The video card's just junk, it's just used for display output. I don't even know what it is, GeForce 710 or something. The memory I'm not so worried about because I have pretty good case ventilation, which I do to make sure that those disks stay healthy. But I do want to check the CPU because I was having weird instability issues and crashes. Part of it was I had 2 fans die because of the guys who did the bathroom work. I had SATA cables that were coming undone because of the vibration. So anyways, after changing the things that I needed to change, changing the thermal paste, I wanted to stress it. I'm going to stress, now this one is a 6-core 12 thread, so do 12, hit enter. Now to stop that stress test, I would hit Control-C. One thing I'm going to note here is on my server, all the fans run at 100% simply because I don't have PWM fans right now. I'm planning to buy some. That's why you hear it now. That's why it's loud and obnoxious all the time. That's that buzzing in the background. The nice thing is when I'm stressing it, the temperature will go up, but the fan noise doesn't. And let's see that temperature change actually. You can see, now my disks are still around 30 degrees Celsius. They're at the front of the case. They get fresh, cool air from a fan right in front of them. But the CPU, as you can see, is going up. Now the CPU normally will stabilize around 73 degrees Celsius if I leave this open for a while. For me, I only stress test for maybe 20, maybe 30 minutes. That's really all that I think I need. I'm not doing video editing that's going to run for 15 hours. I'm not doing any machine learning. It's a server, yeah, but it's also not critical. It's my personal server. And so I don't see the need to stress test for 24 or 48 hours like some people do. I think that's ridiculous that people do that on gaming computers. It's just a waste of energy, but whatever. At any rate, I'll let it run until the temperature stabilizes, give it another 5, maybe 10 minutes, see if it changes again, and then turn it off, and that's it. You can see temps are still going up a bit, 63 degrees. Again, they'll probably stabilize around 73 at the most. And that's all that I do to check these. Now again, to end this, you hit Control-C, and then you'll immediately see these temps come back down. See that? So again, disk temps are not changing, but CPU temps are changing greatly. Anyways, hopefully that helps somebody out. After you've made big changes in terms of the power system, the cooling system, really even just componentry changes, you might want to run a stress test, at least for a reasonable amount of time. That amount of time is going to depend on your usage. For me, none of my usage is really critical, but I do want the thing stable. 20 minutes, half an hour is fine. 24 is ridiculous on a gaming machine. Don't do what people who watch Gamers Nexus do and run it for 60 hours or whatever. That's just dumb. In my opinion, it's a waste of energy. Anyways, hopefully this helps somebody. Enjoy.